Is any wonder we don't believe the president? He said, I'm not going to put American troops in harm's way into Iraq. And then a couple of days later, he says, oh, by the way, I decided I'm going to send some Marines over there, some SEALs or whatever.
It's a crazy situation.
I mean, it's crazy, but I mean, he doesn't know what he's doing. They don't think about it. But it's a shame to be governed by novices. But you chose him. You voted for him. Good for you. Well, in Iraq, Christians and Kurds may have fled to the north to get away from the terrorists.
America is even considering working with its archenemy, Iran, to stop the dangerous violence in Iraq. We have two reports from CBN News, beginning with Charlene Aaron.
Preparations to house thousands of fleeing Iraqis are underway at this makeshift camp inside Kurdistan.
This geographical area belongs to the Christians, Yazidis, and Kurds. We are happy that these people have come here. They're welcome. Everyone is.
Residents from Mosul and other parts of Iraq are beginning to arrive after the al-Qaeda spin-off group known as the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria captured key cities across the country.
Everybody fled their homes. We were forced out of ours. We couldn't speak and left out of fear because there's death in Mosul.
President Obama told Congress Monday that 275 U.S. troops will be deployed to protect staff at the huge embassy in Baghdad. While their mission is non-combative, the Pentagon says U.S. soldiers are allowed to defend themselves if they are under attack. Some 170 of those soldiers are already on the ground. One senior U.S. official said up to 100 Special Forces soldiers could also join them. America has a number of military assets in the region, including 4 warships, a U.S. carrier able to launch 40 fighter jets, and 2 ships that can fire cruise missiles. Meanwhile, U.S. and Iranian officials are reportedly holding rare talks about how to stop the insurgents from gaining more ground in Iraq. A senior military commander of Iran's elite Quds force is in Baghdad this week.
I think we are open to any constructive process here that could minimize the violence, hold Iraq together, the integrity of the country, and eliminate the presence of outside terrorist forces that are ripping it apart.
Iraqi government forces are also engaged in the fight trying to slow the Islamist approach on the capital city. Today, they launched multiple strikes on terrorist positions some 40 miles from Baghdad. Charlene Aaron, CBN News.
This is Chris Mitchell reporting from Erbil, Iraq. Thousands of Iraqi families have fled the fighting and come here to Erbil. They fled the bloodbath left in the wake of the ISIS lightning strike across northern and central Iraq. It's unlikely that ISIS will turn north because they'd face a formidable military foe in the Kurdish military. They call themselves the Peshmerga, which literally means those that face death. It's a key time for the region, and especially here for the Kurdish people. They face a historic crossroads and the very real possibility they could declare themselves an independent state. But like the rest of Iraq, they face an uncertain future. With the U.S. seeking to disengage from the international arena and the rest of the international community unwilling to intervene, Iraq could face some of its most difficult days ahead. These are the lands of the Bible, the land of Nineveh and the prophet Jonah. And many here also believe this land has a future prophetic promise. In Isaiah 19, it says, Assyria is the work of my hands. Because of the turmoil and fighting, Iraqi Christians are sending out an urgent prayer request to Christians around the world to pray that peace will come to these lands. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Erbil in Kurdish, Iraq.
Thanks, Chris. Without question, the Kurds need an independent state. They're very fine people. They've set up a nice little enclave there. The rule of law, business is going along swimmingly. They're doing a great job. And they made the intelligent move of taking over those Kirkuk oil fields. So they're in pretty good shape, and it looks like that country, it's an artificial thing. Why should we spend a lot of money to, quote, hold Iraq together? Like, who cares? It doesn't really matter. And the tribal tensions are there. Why should we try to gloss over them? The Sunnis don't like the Shias. The Shias don't like the Sunnis. So let them have at it. And why should we get involved and have our soldiers lose their lives as they have, and then surrender the hard-won gains to this bunch of terrorists that's running around. But the incredible thing is that we're going to reach out to Iran. Iran is our biggest enemy. Iran calls us the great Satan. Iran hates us, and they want to destroy us. And they want to bring in the Mahdi, the 12th Imam, and they want to build nuclear weapons so that they can threaten Israel. And they back Hezbollah in Lebanon, and they back other radical organizations, and suddenly they become our allies, and they're going to work with us against the, quote, terrorists. Who are we kidding? Secretary Kerry, please wake up and smell the coffee. Well, here at home, Republicans in Congress aren't buying that nonsense that's come out of the IRS, that somehow the Tea Party documents from Lois Lerner got lost. 2 years of emails lost? Not a chance. Ephraim Graham has that story from CBN Newsroom. Here's Ephraim.
Pat, House Republicans are stepping up their probe into the IRS scandal after the tax agency said it lost more than 2 years of emails that are a key part of the investigation. House Oversight Committee Chairman Darrell Issa told IRS Commissioner John Koskinen, quote, "I will not tolerate your continued obstruction and game playing in the response to the committee's investigation." The IRS Commissioner says he will testify before 2 committee hearings about the emails next week. A 5-year-old child was killed after massive dual tornadoes swept through Nebraska Monday. At least 19 people were injured after twin tornadoes touched down roughly within a mile of each other. It happened about 100 miles northeast of Omaha in the town of Pilger. The twisters were reportedly to be the deadly EF4s, generating winds of up to 200 miles an hour. One was estimated to have been nearly a mile wide. A county spokesman says half the tiny town was wiped out.
Everything lifted off of us, and the heater smashed over me and my buddy. We yelled at my buddy Donnie because me and my buddy Ethan were pinned in between the 2 bricks off the bottom of our basement. And we looked back at Donnie, and we thought he was gone for a long time. We kept yelling at him, and then we dug him out and pulled the wood off him, pulled the bricks off him, and drug him out. And the 3 of us somehow, we're all fine. It killed my dog.
Dual tornadoes are rare enough, but the National Weather Service says it is very unusual for them to have funnel clouds roughly the same strength. Churches that host high school graduation ceremonies may have to hide their crosses and other religious symbols during the events. The U.S. Supreme Court turned away an appeal of a ruling that said displaying such symbols at public commencement exercises violates the Constitution, even if the ceremony is held inside a church. A federal court in Chicago issued that decision back in 2012. The Embrook School District appealed, but the court turned it down on Monday. Pat, it's like going to the library and hiding the books.
I'm just so disgusted with what we're having. The American people wouldn't have voted in homosexuality, but the courts did. The American people wouldn't have voted in same-sex marriage, but the courts did. The American people wouldn't have given up the 10 Commandments and prayer in schools, but the courts insisted on it. And a few people, a few left-leaning judges have twisted the Constitution way beyond anything that the founders intended. They have gone way beyond the clear intent of the founders. They have gone beyond the Federalist Papers or the other historic documents, and they have created a jurisprudence that is just ridiculous. And sooner or later, something has got to be done to say, listen, this is absurd what you're doing. But the idea of a church having to hide crosses and symbols, they want them to smash out the stained glass windows that show Jesus, they want them to do that, so it won't be offensive to the ACLU. What have we gotten to in this country? Sooner or later, we've got to get back to the uniting principle that we had in this nation. We were a nation that believed in law. We were a nation that believed in God. We were a nation that believed in the Bible, and we were guided by biblical principles. Now, a few unelected judges, and it's just a few, have distorted the history of our nation to give us something that we never intended to have. And something's got to be done about it. Ephraim?
Pat, the United States started off the World Cup Soccer Championships in Brazil with a big victory. The American team beat their nemesis Ghana 2-1 in a nail-biting match that wasn't decided until the final minutes. It started with a stunning goal from American Clint Dempsey in the first 30 seconds of the game, earning him the 5th quickest goal in World Cup history. Ghana tied up the score late in the second half, but the game wrapping up, substitute John Brooks punched in the winning goal off a corner kick. Across the U.S., soccer fans erupted in jubilation. Massive viewing parties were held from California to Missouri to South Dakota. The victory was especially sweet for Team USA because Ghana had knocked the U.S. out of the World Cup back in 2010 and 2006. The U.S. plays Portugal next. That game will happen on Sunday. Tomorrow we'll show you how churches in Brazil are mobilizing to reach soccer fans with the gospel and fight human trafficking. Sitting really can be dangerous to your health. A new study says sitting too much can raise your risk of certain types of cancer. The study was published in the Journal of the National Cancer Institute. It is a review of 43 studies with more than 4 million people, and it says it is important not only to be active, but to spend less time sitting. One expert tells Time magazine people can take breaks from sitting, whether at home or at work, by getting up and walking around or stepping outside. And Pat, we know that you stay active, including riding your horse.
Well, I'm sitting on the horse, but let me tell you, I worked him so hard yesterday. I've been sore all day, and I don't know if that counts for
That's not
sitting.
Stationary sitting.
No, it's active sitting.
You are in motion.
Anyhow, I really had a workout yesterday, he and I together, and we're going to have another one despite the heat today.
President Obama is signing an executive order to expand gay rights for people who work with the federal government. The order forbids companies that do business with the government from discriminating against workers based on the basis of their sexual orientation or gender identity. But there may not be any protections for religious organizations. Religious leaders warn if there's no exemption, some Christian and Jewish charities may be forced to violate their faith or withdraw from federal contracts. In Alaska, you'll be able to get more than a drink in some restaurants and bars. Free pregnancy tests will also be available in 20 such establishments. The Anchorage Daily News reports it's part of a new campaign by the University of Alaska to prevent pregnant women from drinking. Alaska has the highest rate of fetal alcohol syndrome in the country, and Alaskan women of childbearing age are 20% more likely to binge drink than the national average. The $400,000 state program starts this December. And you can always get the latest from CBN News by going to our website at cbnnews.com.